You're not broke, that's the problem. You have a salary, a savings account with a real number in it. A 401k you contribute to because HR told you to, health insurance, a car that runs, an apartment that doesn't embarrass you, maybe a house. You are, by every definition the people who raised you understood, doing fine. And that is exactly what is destroying your financial future. Not debt, not bad luck, not a market crash you didn't see coming. Comfort, the specific, quiet, invisible trap of being just okay enough that you never had to become anything more. This is the story of how stability becomes the cage, and how millions of people spend their entire working lives inside it, comfortable, functional, and completely unaware of what it cost them, until the calculator tells them the truth at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Loop 1, the feeling. It starts with a feeling, not a decision, a feeling. The feeling hits somewhere around 27, maybe 29. You've paid off a credit card. Your savings account crossed $8,000. You got the promotion. The title changed. The number on the paycheck moved in the right direction. You sit down one evening and for the first time in your adult life, you do not feel behind. That feeling, that specific exhale, that is the moment the trap closes, not with a click, with a sigh, because what happens next is not a celebration. What happens next is a recalibration. Your brain, which spent 4 years running on low-grade financial anxiety, suddenly decides the crisis is over. And the moment the crisis feels over, the urgency disappears. And the moment the urgency disappears, the building stops. You don't stop trying, you stop pushing. There's a difference. Trying is showing up. Pushing is demanding more from the system than the system naturally gives. Comfortable people try. They just stop pushing, and no alarm goes off, no notification, nothing changes on the surface. You still go to work. You still contribute to the 401k. You still transfer something to savings most months. Everything looks identical from the outside. The only thing that changed is the internal pressure that was forcing optimization. And that pressure is gone now, replaced by something softer. Something that feels like peace but is actually plateau. Loop 2, the payoff illusion here is what the comfortable trap does first. It gives you rewards, real ones, visible ones. Things you can point to. You buy the nicer version. Not extravagant, just nicer. The apartment with the good light. The car that doesn't feel like a compromise. The restaurant where you don't calculate before you order. These feel like progress. They look like success. Your parents are proud. Your friends assume you have it figured out. The rewards are real. That's what makes the trap work. If stability felt bad, everyone would escape it. But stability feels good. It is designed to feel good. The problem is that it is a short loop. Earn. Spend slightly more. Feel stable. Repeat. The loop is clean and closed and it runs forever. And while it's running, compounding is not. Compounding requires an open system. Money that leaves the loop. Money that you do not see or touch or reward yourself with. Money that goes somewhere uncomfortable, somewhere it can grow without your permission, without your supervision, without your awareness. The comfortable trap closes the loop, tightly, neatly, permanently. You are earning $74,000. You are saving $6,200 a year. That's 8.3%. Respectable, that's the word your brain uses. Respectable. Not aggressive, not optimized. Respectable. The person in your industry who understood this at 24 is saving 24%. They drive a 2017 Honda. They are not respectable by your definition. They are building something by a definition you haven't adopted yet. By 40, the gap between your retirement projections and theirs is $340,000. Not because they earned more. Because they stayed uncomfortable longer. Rule 1: comfort is not the reward for financial discipline. It is the enemy of it. The moment you feel financially okay, the clock on your future starts running slower. Loop 3: The raise that changes nothing, you get a raise. $11,000 more a year. Before tax, $680 extra a month after. This is the moment. This specific moment right here. This is where the path forks. Most people in the comfortable trap do one of two things with that $680. They absorb it into lifestyle, a slightly better apartment, a lease on a vehicle they could have bought used, subscriptions they didn't have before, dinners that didn't exist in last year's budget. Or they save a portion of it and spend the rest, feeling virtuous about the savings and unconcerned about the spend. What they do not do is treat the entire $680 as fuel. The person who escapes the comfortable trap has a rule. It is simple and brutal. Every raise gets split before it lands. Half to lifestyle, half to a vehicle that earns. Not half to savings, half to an actual asset, a brokerage account, a rental property down payment fund, a business investment, something that runs when they don't. This rule is not complicated. It requires no financial expertise. A 23-year-old can understand it in 4 minutes. The reason most people don't follow it is not ignorance, it's comfort. The lifestyle upgrade calls louder than the compounding does. The new apartment is visible. The investment account is a number on a screen you check twice a month. Your brain was not designed to feel the difference between an investment account at $61,000 and one at $61,340. It was designed to feel the difference between a cramped kitchen and a kitchen with counter space. The trap is not stupidity. The trap is neurology aimed at the wrong target. By the time you realize the upgrade wasn't worth it, the window for maximum compounding is already behind you. Your 20s are the most powerful decade you will ever have in financial terms. Not because of income, because of time. Time is the only ingredient that makes compounding violent, and you spent yours feeling comfortable. Loop 4, the spreadsheet AT midnight. It happens on a Tuesday. Always a Tuesday. Nothing ceremonial. You open a calculator you found in some newsletter. Or a coworker mentions their retirement number in the break room and something shifts. Or you turn 38 and it's suddenly not abstract anymore. You type in your numbers, current savings rate, current balance, expected return, years to retirement. The number comes back, you stare at it, you type in different assumptions, you bump the return rate, you adjust the contribution. You add a theoretical inheritance. You get the number to something more comfortable, but you know the comfortable version is the optimistic one. You know the realistic one is the first number, the one sitting on the screen before you started adjusting. $490,000 at 65, after 35 years of doing everything right by the definition you were handed. That's $19,600 a year at a 4% withdrawal rate, before tax, before inflation, before the medical expenses that statistically arrive in the last decade of life with a ferocity that no comfortable middle-class spreadsheet accounts for. You close the laptop. You make coffee. You don't call anyone. There's nothing to say. This is not a crisis you can explain to someone who isn't running the same numbers. This is a private reckoning. A slow, quiet understanding that fine and enough are not the same coordinate on a map you only just started reading. And then the second number arrives, the one that makes it worse. You look up what would have happened if you had redirected $400 a month starting at 22 instead of 30. Just $400, the cost of a car payment, the cost of 2 restaurant dinners a week. A number so unremarkable you spent it without noticing for 8 years. At 7% average annual return, $400 a month from 22 to 65 becomes $1,197,000. Starting at 30, the same $400 a month, same return, same discipline, becomes $567,000. The cost of those 8 comfortable years is $630,000. You didn't lose that money. You didn't spend it on anything memorable. You just lived comfortably. You just didn't push. And the machine that would have built your future ran at half capacity for 8 years while you felt fine. Rule 2: the cost of comfort does not appear on a bank statement. It appears in a projection, and projections do not forgive the years you felt okay. Loop 5: the identity problem here is what nobody says about the comfortable trap. It is not just financial, it is identity. The person in the trap has built a self-image around stability, around being responsible, around not being the person who takes risks, around having an emergency fund and a 401k and a mortgage they can service and a life that doesn't scare them. This identity is not wrong. It is genuinely admirable by the standard of the generation that built it. The problem is that this identity resists the moves that would change the trajectory. Because those moves feel irresponsible. They feel like the opposite of what a stable, responsible person does. A stable person does not put $30,000 into a rental property in a city they've visited twice. A stable person does not start a business while employed. A stable person does not redirect 20% of their income into an investment account when the mortgage payment is already tight and the car needs tires. A stable person does not take the calculated risk. Because calculated risks feel from the inside exactly like uncalculated ones. The calculation is invisible, the risk is visible, so the stable person doesn't move. The stable person stays in the lane that feels correct, the lane that their parents approved of, the lane that their peer group validates, the lane that gets them to 65 with $490,000 and a pension they hope holds and a social security check that buys groceries but not options. And here is the most painful part of this. The stable person is not lazy. The stable person is not weak. The stable person works hard, shows up, earns the promotions, does the things. The stable person is, by most measures, doing it right. They just accepted a definition of right that was written for survival and applied it to a world where building was possible. The identity is the trap, not the income, not the market, not the timing. The story you tell about who you are and what kind of person you are and what kind of moves people like you make. That story has a cost. And it compounds in the wrong direction for decades before you notice. Loop 6: the comparison that arrives too late you find out at dinner. Your friend Daniel mentions his rental property like it's a minor administrative detail. The cash flow number is $880 a month. He says it the way people say they got a parking spot. Casually. Completely without performance. You went to the same school. You started at similar salaries. You have had similar lives on every visible surface for 15 years. He bought the property at 29. You thought about it at 29. You decided the timing wasn't right. The market was too hot. You didn't have enough saved for a comfortable down payment. You wanted to wait until the situation felt cleaner. It never felt clean, so you never moved. Daniel moved when it was messy. He stretched. He felt uncomfortable for 11 months. He answered maintenance calls on weekends. He had a tenant pay late for 3 months in a row, and he learned how to handle it, and the machine kept running. And now he is 41. His net worth is $480,000 ahead of yours. Not because he earned more, because he was willing to be uncomfortable for longer than you were. You drive home from that dinner and something reorganizes in your chest. Not envy, something quieter. The recognition of a fork in the road, viewed from a distance from the wrong direction. You can see both paths now. You can see exactly where they diverged. One Tuesday in 2012 when the discomfort felt like a reason to wait and the comfort felt like wisdom. It wasn't wisdom. It was the trap. Loop 7, the 3 doors you didn't walk through. This is what the comfortable trap actually costs. Not in the abstract, in specifics. Door 1. The business you almost started at 31. You had the idea, you had the skill set. You had 3 people who told you it was good. You ran the numbers and the numbers were plausible. You decided to wait until you had more saved, more runway, more certainty. You waited until 35. By 35, the window had shifted. The market had moved. Someone else had built the version you imagined. You closed the idea quietly and didn't talk about it. That business, conservatively, would have generated $4,200 a month in income by year 3. Over 10 years, that's $504,000 in revenue you didn't build. Not all profit, but most of it compoundable, reinvestable, convertible into assets that would have changed your trajectory permanently. Door 2. The index fund you didn't start at 24. You knew about it. A coworker explained it at a company happy hour. You nodded. You said you'd look into it. You looked into it 6 years later. Between 24 and 30, the market returned an average of 11.2% annually. Your savings account returned 0.6%. On $15,000 in capital over 6 years, the difference in outcome was $11,400. You did not lose $11,400. You earned $900 instead of $12,300. The comfortable choice had a price. You just didn't see it on the statement. Door 3. The conversation you didn't have. At 33, a colleague invited you to a small investment group. 4 people pooling knowledge, reviewing opportunities, sharing deal flow. You went once. The conversation felt above your level. The people seemed more aggressive than you were comfortable with. You didn't go back. 2 of those 4 people now operate at a financial altitude you can see but not reach. The conversation you didn't keep having was worth more than any single investment inside it. The network was the asset. You left it on the table because it made you uncomfortable. 3 doors. All of them opened, all of them walked past, none of it dramatic, all of it quiet. This is how the comfortable trap works, not through bad decisions, through non-decisions. Through the consistent, gentle, entirely reasonable choice to stay where it feels safe. Rule 3: wealth is not built by the moves you make under pressure. It is lost by the moves you don't make when you feel fine. Loop 8: the exit here is what getting out of the comfortable trap actually looks like. Not the fantasy version, the real one. It is not a dramatic pivot. It is not quitting your job and starting over. It is not a sudden risk that pays off in a montage. It is a decision you make on a Tuesday that feels completely wrong, and you do it anyway. You raise your 401k contribution from 6% to 14%. The take-home drops by $280 a month. The lifestyle adjusts. It is uncomfortable for 4 months. Then you don't notice it anymore. The machine is running faster than it was. You don't feel it, but the projection changed. You open the brokerage account you've been meaning to open for 3 years. You put $500 in it. You buy a total market index fund. You set a recurring transfer, $300 a month, automated. You never see it leave. That's the point. You say no to the apartment upgrade. The lease comes up, you stay. The $320 a month difference goes into the brokerage. You feel the friction of the decision for 2 weeks, then you don't feel it anymore. The account grows, quietly. Without your involvement, you have the uncomfortable conversation. You tell your partner you want to buy a rental property in 2 years. You build the down payment fund. You research markets on Saturday mornings instead of sleeping in. You are not ready. You move anyway. None of this is heroic. None of it requires unusual intelligence or extraordinary discipline. It requires one thing: the willingness to sit with discomfort long enough for compounding to start working. Most people are not willing, not because they're weak, because they achieved comfort and comfort told them they were done. And the trap is that comfortable people believe it. The exit is not a leap. It is a series of small, deliberate choices to stay uncomfortable just a little longer than feels necessary. A little longer than feels okay. Just long enough for the machine to start running. And once it starts, it runs on its own. You just have to not turn it off. Pay off, rapid close, you are not broke. You know that. But knowing you're not broke is not the same as building something. And for most of the people watching this, for most of the people running the same salary, the same savings rate, the same comfortable loop, the gap between where they are and where they could be is not a gap in income. It's a gap in urgency. Broke people have urgency handed to them by necessity. Comfortable people have to manufacture it themselves. That is the harder task. Nobody hands you the pressure. You have to decide the projection matters before the calculator forces you to look at it. $1,247. That's where the first video started. Your balance. Checked at 11:43 p.m. That version of you had urgency. That version of you moved carefully because every decision had visible consequences. That version of you was, in some ways, more financially dangerous and more financially alive than the version of you sitting on $40,000 in savings and 8.3% contributions and a stable mortgage and a life that doesn't scare you. Bring the urgency back, not the fear, the urgency, the specific pressure that forces optimization, the pressure that makes you look at a raise and see fuel instead of reward. The pressure that makes an uncomfortable move feel necessary instead of optional. The comfortable trap does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, wearing the face of success. It stays as long as you let it. And the only thing that ends it is a decision you make before the calculator forces you to. The machine opens every morning. It takes whoever shows up uncomfortable enough to push, show up.